Good morning. Welcome to True Vine Talks. Linda and Rachel here. Today, we're going to be talking about, I think, one of the most misunderstood emotions out there. Some people are afraid of it. Some people think it is morally wrong. And some people have what they would refer to as a problem with it. And that emotion, if you haven't guessed it already, is anger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from the research and from neuroscience perspective, we know that anger acts to protect our person.
Mm-hmm. It's very like defensive, protective reaction.
Yeah. What happens within the spiritual realm when we talk about anger?
I think there's a lot of shame and morality associated with it, that it's wrong. Don't be angry, forgive is what I hear a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Need to love, right? A lot of people see anger as the opposite of love, which is not always true. You can love someone and be angry with them.
That's right. You can love someone and be angry with them.
Yeah.
A matter of fact, in Brene Brown's book, she was referencing Dr. Gottman, and he said that anger it promotes, awareness that you care for the person.
Yeah. So if you were indifferent, you probably wouldn't become angry. You'd just be like, yeah, whatever.
There goes that person.
Okay.
Yeah, bye. Yeah. Right. Because it's kind of like if you're at the mall and you see someone throwing a fit over, like a younger child throwing a fit because they didn't get the cookie.
No.
They're angry. They wanted the cookie.
Yeah.
And you're indifferent to it because you're like, oh yeah, okay. But to feel anger towards someone you care about means you need them to see you.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time anger tells us that we're experiencing a threat or an injustice, something that feels like it's not fair, it's not right. And the threat could be physical, like you're in your car and someone cuts you off and you're like, honk the horn. What the heck, buddy? You almost killed me there. Right? Physical threat.
Might flip them the bird or something.
Might flip them the bird, might throw some out the window. I've heard all kinds of stories. Right? People get road rage out here.
Yeah,
it's a physical threat, or it could be a threat to your worth and value, right? Someone hurts you emotionally, you're going to feel angry, right? Because that's a threat to either your bond and attachment, threat to trust, threat it could be a threat to all kinds of things emotionally.
Yeah, your attachment bond. Yeah. That's how come in couples therapy, if the person is feeling betrayed because there was an outside relationship, you feel hurt because you thought that bond was just between the two of you. You were not aware that someone else was needed to fulfill that person's unmet needs. And so you do feel anger, and we call that righteous anger for the behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the reason anger is so misunderstood is because it often comes out as malicious anger. Would you agree? It's the way it's expressed is not with healthy behaviors. And so people see that, they experience that, and then they see anger as something that's not healthy. when really anger, the emotion itself, is completely healthy, completely normal human experience. It's
Mm-hmm.
the behaviors, it's the way that anger can be expressed that is unhealthy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Cussing people out, screaming, yelling, throwing things, slamming doors.
Yeah. Because the other person feels under attack.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How could
So,
you not?
yeah. And when you feel under attack, your body's response is fight, flight, or freeze.
Mhm.
And you're going to be responding in that way to that person.
Yeah. Because now I'm feeling angry because I'm experiencing a threat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this is scary. This is getting loud and potentially dangerous. Yeah. So now
So
I'm on the defense.
it's a protective emotion
Mhm.
for your person.
Yeah.
And this gets into, the spiritual part of things is when don't go to bed angry. Don't, the Bible says not to
Let the
be
sun set
angry.
on your anger. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Rachel. Be angry and sin not.
Mm.
It is folly to display anger, Proverbs. Um, it is foolish to display the emotion of anger. A lot of people, they take these verses, and I think it's out of the context of which it's speaking to. And my impression is when you're in a council of people and you're discussing big things that happen in the world, and you're standing there angry, cussing, and protesting, you might look like a fool.
Mm.
So that's different. I think that in Proverbs, when David's talking about anger in that context, it's I think that's in the social setting or in the council of how to run a community. I could be totally wrong. I'm not a theologian. I'm
I
not
think
a
it makes
pastor.
sense.
I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, with the interactions when, you and I were both processing was Christ, our Lord, he was displaying anger in the temple. And um, he got so angry at the people for buying and selling um, in his temple. And the temple was a place of worship and where people would bring, their animals to sacrifice to God for their sin. So when he went in there and he saw those money changers and they were taking money from the poor for the doves, is that right?
Yeah.
And they were trying to buy and sell their way into God's good graces. I think that's the part that of Jesus that got protective.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah. That's how I interpret it. He got angry in a big way, just
Big
flipping
emotion.
tables, just throwing the coins out onto the street. He
And
protested.
he did protest. Thank you, Rachel. Yeah. And people, they always, oh, Jesus was so meek, mild, and sweet and calm. And he is all those things. And then he shows big frustration.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how is that justice and right to be angry in this situation?
Was I think they describe righteous anger as a mission to do good, a mission to right wrong.
Mhm.
He didn't hurt any people that I'm aware
Oh.
of, didn't hurt
Mm.
any animals, right?
Mm-mm.
Didn't hurt any living things. He wasn't like beating people up, right? But he, but
He
he
wasn't
was
a
like,
Fight Club.
right. But he was like, this is not what this temple was meant for. You're tricking people, you're manipulating people, you're
Mm,
being selfish,
yeah.
right, to the money changers. And he made a very bold statement.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't say, "Meet me out back in the bar. We're gonna stick it
Maybe
out."
outside, how about that? No, that wasn't Jesus.
I love our genuineness about how we
Yeah.
experience this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's like what you said, he's righting a wrong. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like we see a lot of people, protesting with
Yeah,
signs, right?
right.
Yeah.
Because deep inside of them, there's a part of them that knows that part of themselves needs protected, defended.
Hmm.
And Jesus was looking out for the poor.
Yes. Yeah.
He's like, you're not taking what little they have and giving it to the rich in this situation in my Lord's house.
Right. He was always looking out for the sick, the outcast, the poor, right? The people that everyone else kind of likes to look down their nose at,
I
like
like that.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. See that. Yeah. So the emotion itself, you and I were processing before we got on, is it promotes change and righting a wrong. And Brene Brown says she doesn't believe that it is a primary emotion like sad or happy.
Hmm.
Um, and so her research shows us that it may act as a secondary emotion for deeper feelings.
Yeah. And the more I learn about emotions, I think the more I agree with that. I think it's very rare for anger to be the core primary emotion. I do think it happens, but I think more often than not, it is associated with some other emotion. And when Linda and I talk about secondary emotions, we don't mean it's any less important.
All
Like
right.
it's equally as important. We just mean that it's not happening in a vacuum. There's not just anger there, that the anger is present because betrayal, hurt, disappointment was triggered first. Shame, right? A threat to your worth or value, feeling unappreciated. One of
Mm-hmm.
those things or something else was felt, something more profound, right?
Yeah.
Something more vulnerable. And you
Mm-hmm.
became angry as a result of that primary emotion.
Well stated, Rachel. Well stated. Yeah, there was something else. There was another vulnerable part of self being rubbed, the raw spot, as we talk about in attachment therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when
Yeah.
you overlooked me, I felt dismissed and ignored. So I displayed angry protest.
Yeah. And that's when a lot of that malicious anger will come out, right? You hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I want revenge. I want you to hurt so you know how badly you hurt me. Or I want justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being, in the heat of the moment, justice feels like revenge, feels like getting you back for what you've done.
Yeah, that's true. So the antidote, for sharing that big emotion of anger versus calling the person a bitch.
Right.
Well, yeah. So
Yeah.
rather than call that person a bitch, I might say, hey, when you dismissed me and overlooked me, I felt hurt. I felt betrayed, felt
Mhm.
disrespected. So it might look
Mm.
like that versus the attack language, which Brene Brown, keep looking at my phone because I wrote notes, is I think she called it motive attribution symmetry. I'd never heard of that before.
Oh, fancy terms. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and that anger is a way of avoiding disgust and feeling disgusted. And he calls it, well, actually, she said a scientist calls it micro intuitive biology. Micro intuitive biology.
We're getting real scientific with these micro intuitive biology.
Yeah.
That's a new
So
one for me. I haven't heard that.
that's in the Atlas of the Heart. I think I've got
Oh,
her.
okay. I have
Yeah.
that book. Yeah, I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Well, you have a lot on your plate.
You too.
I know, but when we do these podcasts, because I'm a nerd, I go
Oh,
looking for all the
uh,
chapters and all
oh,
this.
that's a good idea. I don't have to read the whole book. I can yeah, do little chunks at a time.
That's all we have
What?
time
Yeah, that's true. Good insight. Always learning from Linda. Such a great mentor.
for.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
thanks, Rachel.
micro.
Yeah, he says that, like, how when you smell something and it's bad, like the eggs went bad.
Yes. Yes.
He's saying that it's micro intuitive, meaning your biology says this is bad for me.
I use this example with clients and I haven't read it anywhere that I know of, but I'm like, disgust is disgust. I tell them, you smell rotten garbage, your body's going to tell you to move away from that. If you're interacting with a person and you feel disgusted, that's your body telling you to move away from that interaction,
Good
that
job.
behavior.
You're
Yeah,
exactly right. And he says we try to avoid poison or toxins.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a term for it that I'm learning today. I'll need to write that down. Go look that up.
Cool. Love
That's
it.
cool. Yeah.
Nerd alert, nerd alerts.
Yes. We're big nerds. Proud of
We're
it.
nerds.
Yeah.
Well, I don't guess I really followed that thought through or flowed well with that.
Oh, that's all right. We're talking about, yeah, but you getting that sign, feeling disgust, feeling threatened, it's not safe. There's a lack of safety, right? Physically, emotionally, what have you. And that's when we feel the need to protect ourselves. And that's when that malicious anger can come out because it feels too risky in that moment to be like, you're really hurting me right now. I don't appreciate you crossing my boundary and disrespecting me. And
no,
there's
not
gonna
others. Go ahead.
and there's gonna be a lot of people that you will not be able to have that conversation with.
Good point, Rachel.
It's there are some people in the world, unfortunately, that will never be receptive and responsive to reason
Well stated.
or capable of having a rational, like heart to heart conversation. Yeah.
And most of the time, those people are sociopaths.
Yeah.
Not always. Maybe they're just hard and that they've got that protector part so hard and burdened from trauma that they can't be present, or they don't care about people.
Yeah. 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 So you're right, Linda. Some people, are either sociopathic or they're on that like spectrum of narcissism. They've got a lot of the traits and they're too guarded.
Mm,
They are not going to let that wall down to be vulnerable with you. And that's not going to be safe for you to risk.
exactly. So, you know, several Jordan Peterson and Brene Brown say this. Have they earned the right to hear? Not everyone needs to be honored with your vulnerability.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Because you and
hmm,
I talk about the importance of being vulnerable, how that's really brave, and we need to communicate how we're feeling below the anger, below the surface. And we mean that, but we mean that in safe, reliable, trusting relationships.
thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Miss Rachel, when you feel hurt by someone and you can't approach them with how they hurt you, what do you do?
I create distance.
Thank you.
I create distance from that person.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us to what Christ said. If you have a problem with someone and they've offended you or hurt you, you go to that person and you try to resolve and repair. If they're not responsive for the reconnection and reparative work, go get another person. This is why couples therapy works. And that person will come online and help you resolve that. But if that person still doesn't listen, yeah, walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. And you can still have love for that person if you want to. You
Mm-hmm.
can have love for someone and choose to walk away.
That's important for our listeners, our clients to know.
Yeah. And it might be hard to walk away, and you
Mm-hmm.
will grieve that loss.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere recently, I wish I could give the source, but I don't remember that, love is like a well or a lake, right?
Mm.
It's full and it takes time for that love to drain, you know, and it hurts. And grief is having a full well or full lake of
Mm.
love and nowhere to give it. Got all this love for someone or something, and now you don't have the outlet for it. That person's no longer there
Right.
for you to share that love with. And
Mm-hmm.
that's painful. Yeah.
They're missing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So, yeah, I want to make sure, um, you know, that our listeners hear and they take away today what the purpose of anger is, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Purpose of anger is, well, malicious anger, which we want to avoid. And that's what everyone thinks of when they hear the word anger. They think of like just on fire, red, like rage, and that's seeking revenge. You're trying to hurt, right? It's often misplaced or misguided. A lot of the time, it has nothing to do with the person that you're out to hurt. A lot of the time, it's more inside. It's bringing up something from the past. Not always, but very often. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then righteous anger that we're talking about, which is like healthy, right, is anger that puts you on a mission to come to a resolution, resolve
Mm-hmm.
things, do good,
Yeah.
return to love.
You have a right to feel angry.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've been hurt.
Mm-hmm. And when James talks about being slow to anger, quick to listen, well, listen and then respond. But you can feel angry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in our last podcast, we talked about the importance of validation,
Yes.
validating emotions. And anger needs validated just as much as any other emotion. So when we tell people, don't be angry, or God doesn't want us to be angry, or you need to forgive,
Right.
that's hurtful. And they're
Yeah.
going to be angry at you for telling them that.
Yeah. You're going
That
to get more angry.
fuels anger. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why George Fowler does a lot of that mirroring the behavior. And okay, the kid's mad. So you go there and you go, oh, I'm just so
Mm,
mad. I didn't get my cookie. Mirroring back is validating that emotion. Oh, you're human. You're feeling you didn't get something you wanted.
yeah.
We don't always get what we want. It's okay to feel that feeling. What do you want to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times there's three ways people express anger, right? There's spewers that just, as soon as you feel angry, it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Stuffers that right, anger is wrong. I don't want to hurt people. So I'm going to just like repress all this anger. And
Mm-hmm.
then often leads to having physical health issues in the future because you're just
Yep.
shoving that anger down. It's being stored in the body. And then there's leakers that believe anger is wrong and they don't want to express it because they don't want to hurt people. But it builds and builds and builds. And then something happens and they make a passive aggressive comment, or, right, like it leaks out. Ugh, bringing up stuff from the past. Boom.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. They kept a record of wrongs.
Yeah.
Contempt. And that's what Brene Brown was talking about, is contempt. And um, Gottman's work is when I start having contempt for you, yeah, I'm gonna leak that out. Like you said, leak out some
Mm-hmm.
jabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unresolved anger will always, I feel, turn into resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And when we reach the point of resentment, it just gets harder and harder to resolve. Would you agree? It's
Oh,
not
good point.
impossible, but it becomes a lot harder.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if I start to resent you, I'm I think it leads to disgust.
I do
What we were
too.
talking about earlier.
I do too.
You keep
Mhm.
overlooking my needs. You keep like dismissing me, not caring about me. I'm gonna feel resentment. Eventually, I'm gonna feel like you're toxic.
Mhm.
And what do we
I
do
could
if something's poisonous?
move
Spew it
away.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we want
Yeah.
our listeners to know that feeling angry is a sign. It's a signaling to your person that something isn't okay here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, every human being on earth, I believe, is going to feel anger. We
Yeah.
need to acknowledge that, right? Try to figure out how anger shows up in your life. Are you a spewer, a stuffer, or a leaker? Right? And what's that anger really about? And how could you communicate that if it's with a safe person?
Mm-hmm. I'm a spewer.
Are you?
Did you say
I
you're a
think
leaker?
I'm probably a leaker. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you like to let it out a little bit, get it
Mhm.
in there, but not
Yeah.
just spew it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think somewhere along in my life I learned that like if someone else is becoming angry, then it's okay for me to be angry. But I'm not going to be angry first. I don't know.
That's
But that's
deep.
just me being honest. Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't have permission to be angry unless someone else was angry.
I guess so. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Everyone, when I grew up, everybody just spewed out anger, hate, abuse, physical language that was hurtful and harmful. So spewing was part of our
This is
holler
what you saw.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And teaching couples in Appalachia how that really impacts the other person has been so rewarding to me, Rachel.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because that's really how the Appalachian culture communicates in the deep hollers of West Virginia. It's just what we did. We just,
Mhm.
you didn't, you son of a gun, blah, blah. I mean, it's just, I don't know
Yeah.
where that got
Don't hold it
learned.
in. Just let it out. Yeah.
Break things. I don't know. It's very startling to your nervous system, and teaching and doing it myself and learning new ways to dance is it's just growth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, what do you think? Did we do a good job covering anger for our listeners today?
I hope so. If anything, I hope they've taken away that it's okay to be angry. Yeah. Give
Jesus
yourself
saying,
permission to be
mm-hmm,
angry. You don't need to feel ashamed of your anger.
mm-mm. Yeah,
Yeah. You can feel guilty about the way you've acted in anger in the past.
good
You don't
point.
need to feel guilty about feeling angry.
Yeah. And if you're feeling angry and that person cannot hear it for their own defenses showing up, um, it's okay to revisit that.
Yeah.
Take a moment and revisit it. And if they're not willing to hear, then there's your answer. You got to pull away and distance yourself until you have
Mhm.
a mediator or there's some kind of repair resolve that happens in between time. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
If you're,
think that's helpful?
I do, I think it's helpful. Yeah. If you're struggling with anger, please feel free to reach out to Truvine.
Oh,
Happy to help you if we have available spots. If we don't, we'll refer you to some other amazing counselors in the area.
we will. And we appreciate you subscribing and listening to our podcast and helping us grow. Rachel and I are very grateful. So thank you for listening today.
Yeah. Till next time. Bye.